Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Khalil Ekulona, and this is Nashville. Cannabis is big business here in Nashville, but if you looked at the battle over cannabis regulation in Tennessee's state legislature, you wouldn't know it. Marijuana legalization is going slowly in our state. In May of 2022, we had a conversation with lobbyists Frederick Coffin, head of the Hemp Alliance of Tennessee, and Cecily Friday, executive director of the Tennessee Cannabis Coalition. We began with Cecily explaining the marijuana for medical use, state-regulated Delta-8 and marijuana.
Well, Delta-8 is a cannabinoid found in the cannabis plant. It usually occurs in small amounts, naturally occurring small amounts. What you see on the market today, however, is Delta-8 that is derived from CBD. So it's converted in the lab using acids to make the product. It's pretty much the same for Delta-10 THC Delta-10 products as well on the market in Tennessee and throughout the country.
Okay. Well, since we're putting like a fine point on things here, what about hemp and cannabis? What's the difference?
Well, hemp is cannabis. The distinction between hemp and marijuana is a legal one, not a botanical one. It is all cannabis.
Is it sort of like beer and liquor?
Yeah. With marijuana, you have high THC. And hemp, federally legal hemp is under 0.03%.
Okay. You know, in this year's legislative session, we saw several cannabis bills introduced, but the one that got the most attention was the bill presented by State Representative William Lambert that would have banned THC products, including Delta-8. Break down the details of that bill for us.
Well, originally the bill was designed to ban THC products in the state of Tennessee. William Lambert got quite a bit of a backlash from the industry here in Tennessee over that bill. Tennessee Cannabis Coalition spent several weeks lobbying against that bill and doing call-in campaigns, having citizens call in their legislators to object to the ban on THC products in the state. We have a robust hemp industry in the state of Tennessee, so a lot of the industry professionals and industry partners worked together to address this issue. After 2 weeks of our call-in campaign to William Lambert and members of the House, I ended up getting a call from William Lambert on my cell phone when I was on the way to the Ryman to take my daughter out to a concert. And we had a lengthy discussion about where we are with cannabis, at the federal level and where we need to go at the state level. And I basically explained to him, and this is a really important point that everybody needs to understand about this, is that with the 2018 Farm Bill, Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell federally legalized low THC cannabis. So basically what we're regulating now at the federal level is Delta-9 THC, which is just one cannabinoid out of hundreds in the plant. And so now that hemp is federally legal, the industry has legal access to cultivate and produce and dispense, a variety of cannabinoids that are produced in the plant. So it was a big game changer for the industry, and as a result, of course, we've been doing hemp in Tennessee since 2015, but since the 2018 Farm Bill, we've had an abundance of processors, cultivators, and dispensaries pop up throughout the state.
So what happened next after that phone call that you had with Representative Lambert?
Well, once I explained to him that Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell had federally legalized low THC cannabis, the light went off. And then the conversation changed to, okay, how do we regulate this? And so that's, and I want to make clear there are numerous other organizations that were working on this in tandem. So we were kind of hitting this from all angles. But there was finally an understanding made that, the horse had left the proverbial barn, if you will, and they needed to safely regulate this. And by and large, the industry in Tennessee has been very responsible about proactively regulating as far as age restrictions, as far as the amount of THC in products, child-proof packaging. We as an industry have largely been proactive about doing these things, and we were the ones that came to the table and said we want to have these safe regulations and consumer safety regulations put in place for the benefit of the industry and for the benefit of consumers.
If you're just tuning in, this is Nashville, and I'm your host, Khalil Ekulona. This hour, we're talking about cannabis in Tennessee. I'd like to introduce my next guest. Frederick Coffin is the head of the Hemp Alliance Tennessee. Frederick, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be with you today.
As Cecily mentioned, the 2018 Farm Bill drastically changed hemp policy nationwide. How did it really change things here in Tennessee?
Well, one, it allowed us to fully commercialize the plant. I would say there was both positives and negatives as far as effect. From a positive standpoint, it allowed all of that research and development and the companies that started up, say, back in 2015, which Cecily already mentioned, it made it commercial, that we could legally do business. However, on a negative side, where it left some holes is what was legalized was the cultivation of hemp across all U.S. soil, as Donald Trump wrote it, as they wrote it into the bill. Where we left off is having FDA regulation and oversight over all of the products that we now have proliferated shelves across the country and right here in the state of Tennessee, and even from an economical standpoint, according to the fiscal note that the legislators came up with as they were presiding this year, it's over $200 million market in the state of Tennessee. That's good, but where we have opportunity is getting hemp defined as a dietary supplement and approved for food and drinks. Now, in the state of Tennessee, with the work that the Tennessee Growers Coalition has done, it has been codified into our laws. And that's why you see restaurants like LabCanna and other organizations that are providing it in food, drinks. But from the United States total, we still have work to do at the federal level.
What's Tennessee's potential as a location for the growth of hemp?
So let's just talk cannabis. This is something that I preach as I go locally or across the country. The South will own cannabis once our legislators get out the way and we set this up, and it's ours to lose, because when we look at when this was stopped, we own cannabis. The last contract that was done with the United States government on ropes for ships was with Tennessee. And the best even, and I get this from people out in California, Humboldt County, that whenever I say I'm from Tennessee, one of the things that they say is that some of the best grows in the country. I.e. the illicit market, but no, this is fruitful ground for growing the plant. And so I believe that at the end of the day, the South will own the cannabis space, whether it's high THC or low THC. And then one of the other opportunities too, because we're so restrained right now, there's a lot of innovation going on in this state. We're working with one hand behind our back, and that's building our muscles. So by the time that the floodgates open, you're going to see that experience that innovation go across both sides.
You know, some people only know of hemp through its association with reefer, but it has a lot of other properties. I know that hemp is being used for clothing and paper products, but, you know, Frederick, what else can it be used for?
Oh, yeah. No, let's just talk about the plant. You know, I truly feel that this plant was in the Garden of Eden. God is both masculine and feminine. Also, this plant is both masculine and feminine. There is the masculine side, which doesn't get a lot of attraction right now, but it will very soon. That's the male plant, and that's for fiber and grain. And then we have the feminine side, which is the one that takes care of us. And that's all of the CBD and other cannabinoids that you see coming into the market. You know, when you look at the hemp plant, it is the one plant, think about this, it's the one plant that can house you, clothe you, feed you, and take care of you from a medicinal point of view.
Cecily Friday is still with us. Cecily, Frederick mentioned CBD. A lot of people have used it for health benefit reasons and other reasons. You know, but tell us, why is there resistance to CBD?
We honestly, I mean, of course, we're in the industry bubble, if you will. So we don't necessarily see the kind of resistance you see with CBD that you would with THC products. In fact, you know, we're seeing broad acceptance of it. It's not psychoactive, highly psychoactive like you see with THC products. It's generally safe. I mean, the FDA has said it's generally safe for use for consumers, and it's well received that we don't have, you know, we don't see adverse reactions to CBD like you do with, you know, pharmaceuticals. So I think by and large you're seeing a pretty great acceptance by consumers for these products because they work very well, they're very safe, you know, and they're now easily accessible.
You know, we're a long way from the days of reefer madness, but there's still the stigma attached to cannabis, right? You know, Frederick, tell me, what do you have to say to folks who are ensconced in their opposition to pot?
Yeah, being a minority, my first thought goes to this is not a black and brown issue, and we're not destroying the world. But on another note, you know, we have seen the benefits of the plant, as Cecily just alluded to, that we're within consumers are getting broad acceptance. However, after 50 years of talking points and using Black and brown people as a political wedge to demonize the plant, we still have a lot of work to do to really change the political narrative, because the fight is not with consumers. They're loving it.
Real quick from you, Cecily, what chances are we going to have of having, you know, federally removing cannabis, marijuana from Schedule I drugs?
Well, I think there's a lot of support in Congress for this to happen. Unfortunately, what we're dealing with is the same thing that a lot of good legislation is dealing with, is the 60 vote hurdle that has to happen in the Senate. And, you know, this is where good legislation goes to die. And until we get past that hurdle, we're going to continue to have this issue. I mean, as long as we have a pro-cannabis president, too, we've got to deal with that as well. Biden has said that he wants to work on cannabis law reform, but he's not enthusiastic about it. So this is where people have to put pressure on lawmakers and our president and to get movement on this issue, because there are even Republicans that support this. It's just as a party, you know, it's a political issue. So that's where we run into the difficulty of getting movement on this issue.
That was Cecily Friday, Executive Director of the Tennessee Cannabis Coalition, and Frederick Coffin, Head of the Hemp Alliance of Tennessee. Thanks to you both for being on the show. We have to take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue to revisit our episode from May of 2022 and hear what it's like to be a cannabis business owner in Tennessee. Today is the first day of our fund drive. Shows like This Is Nashville are made possible only with your support. So head to WPLN.org and give now. Thanks. We'll be right back.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Khalil Ekulona, and this is Nashville. You're listening to a rebroadcast of our cannabis episode from May of 2022. Why cannabis? Well, according to advocates, Tennessee is fertile ground for cannabis production, but compared to other states, legalization efforts for medicinal or recreational purposes have made little movement. But that hasn't stopped the cannabis and hemp industry from doing business. I spoke with local business owners Drea Groeschel Gunnis, president of Nusachi Hemp, and Derek Piscinius, owner of LabCanna, a CBD and cannabis company. Here's our conversation. So you are both proprietors of cannabis products. Drea, I want to start with you. What is the biggest roadblock that you're facing due to its Schedule I status?
Well, first I'll say that I am fairly new to this industry. So my perspective at this point is really fresh, right? I'm fresh to the party here. And what I'm finding, I mean, I have about 2 decades worth of consumer product launches under my belt. And now at the helm of a company pushing out hemp-based products, I'm finding this web, sort of this murky web that we have to navigate, to build and put together a functioning legal business. So, for example, if you want to put up a website for e-commerce, there are many vendors that will not work with you. If you want to be able to process credit cards so that the consumer can purchase your products, some credit card processors won't work with you. And often the ones that will work with you as a proprietor are charging you more because they see it as high risk, because the regulatory area is so gray and murky for them as well. So by way of the high risk, you're now in an environment where it is very challenging to start or operate a business, as well as more expensive.
Derek, are you facing similar challenges?
Oh, very much so. I couldn't echo that any louder. But yes, there is something that the industry likes to call a green tax. That green tax is just increased costs, increased pricing, simply because we are cannabis. And regardless that we are federally legal in hemp, those barriers still exist to just do good business.
Now, Drea, you mentioned before that you spent 2 decades in launching products for things. Go into a little bit more about the learning curve that you had to adjust with in launching this new product that's cannabis related.
Sure. So Nusachi Hemp is launching a beverage this July. We're very excited about it. And it's a hemp-infused beverage. And, I have never had to put together a company where literally every call I make, the vendor on the other side may or may not take us on as a business partner. I have a great example of this recently where something as simple as a copywriter, so someone who's going to write copy for advertisements or for website verbiage, literally came back to me and said, I have been advised by my legal counsel that I'm not sure we should work together because I don't think I can produce work for you and take on that risk. A copywriter. So this is really stemming, it's all around us. And when you really stack up the amount of vendorship that is challenged by should they or should they not participate in this industry, that creates timeline issues. And again, it creates further expense, but it also takes away a talent pool. So when, you're looking at pushing new products into the market, not only do we want to utilize the best talent and resources we have, but we also want to ensure that we are going to be able, by language and visual content, portray the best education to the consumer to make sure there is safety met and the consumer understands what they are buying. And at the moment, that piece of the regulatory isn't in place. And so we've had to sort of skirt around different language aspects of really getting to the point of what we're actually selling. We actually can't say sometimes because it might get pulled from the shelf because technically we're not supposed to say it because it's not supposed to be in the market. Right. And you can see now this can create a lot of misinformation and misguided education to the consumer.
Now, Derek, you're big on cannabis education. It's a passion of yours. Talk to me. How did that develop?
Absolutely. So that is really a personal story. Much like many of those on this session, many of those that just exist that are cannabis proponents, it's because it had such a tremendous impact on a health and wellness scale. That's been the case for me. I had one of the worst traumatic brain injuries at Vanderbilt Trauma Center I'd ever seen. And I credit my full cognitive recovery to cannabis and cannabinoids specifically, neurological protection and regeneration. That education component is so important, not just for consumers, but obviously our lawmakers, our law enforcement, educators, children, parents. I mean, it's really changing the perception that was indoctrinated in us with the war on drugs. And that's 50 years of misinformation that we are trying to correct. And in order to get that education out there, we need to be able to have a platform to do so. And even that is forbidden, just like Dre was saying.
So, like Dre was saying, have you been in a similar situation as to where you're trying to educate, you're trying to push forward new products, but you have to be incredibly vague with everything that you're saying?
Oh, absolutely. All of the products that we make are based off of research that has been done, not necessarily by ourselves, but true research institutions and medical professionals globally. In order to bring that information to the public and to consumers, you're not allowed to just outright say, this is definitively the result of why you're taking the product. You really have to have the consumer make that connection themselves.
If you're just tuning in, this is Nashville, and I'm your host, Khalil Ekulona. We're talking with people who run cannabis-based businesses. Now, let's get into the chain of supply and how that works. Jay Mitchell is an expert in cannabis cultivation, and he joins us now. Jay, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Khalil.
So, Jay, what are the most common misconceptions about cannabis products and how they are cultivated?
Well, I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that this product is simple to manufacture and produce in a clean, safe way. It's quite a complicated process and difficult to bring new products to market that uphold the true safety and efficacy that we want to see as a cannabis product.
So it's not as simple as throwing seeds in your backyard.
No, sir, not exactly.
So in preparation for the show, we heard someone say that Tennessee's hemp industry is, quote, propped up on toothpicks, end quote. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think Frederick made a good point earlier. With adversity comes strength. And we've got a really strong supply chain and a group of hemp operators in the state that have been able to really create some amazing outcomes, but we're extremely limited. And, to kind of battle the regulatory framework, how it continues to change, how to, keep yourself from making claims on products. The whole process is extremely difficult and highly limiting.
So in your opinion, would lawmakers really get on board to support legalization entirely if the manufacturing and cultivation process were a little bit stronger?
Well, I think it's such a complicated topic that rule makers have difficulty understanding it completely and placing the correct regulatory framework around it. I mean, what we've seen since the Farm Bill in 2018 is the interpretation of the intention behind that bill and the ability for these operators to kind of circumvent some of the pieces to create compelling products that has clear demand in the market by consumers.
Derek, Jay, we're just mentioning about how difficult it is for lawmakers to understand that. You've been a push for education. Does what he said resonate with you?
Oh, it absolutely does. And, we really, LabCanna, our company, our perspective is beyond just selling hemp-derived products. We've grown, we've processed, we manufacture our own products. So we have that entire supply chain experience. And that's how you really get to give that accurate, apt education to those lawmakers.
Thinking big picture about the business perspective here, aside from the legal limitations, is Nashville a good market for cannabis-based businesses? Dre, I'd like you to answer that.
I think the overarching answer is yes. I think we are just very challenged right now with the regulatory environment. And so I think I just want to applaud everybody on this call because there's a lot of champions out there trying to make great changes. And we're in a prohibition era. So we're blazing new trail and it's a tough road. But ultimately, there is a lot of economic value to be reaped in this localized regional area. And I think it could be wonderful.
Have any of you all spoken with your lawmakers, Jay?
Not directly. I keep a close eye on it, but it's a really difficult channel to communicate well in. And I think we've got some good lobbyists and some good groups paying attention and communicating the right things to our lawmakers.
So, these are products that people are taking into their bodies, and the quality of the ingredients is very important. Jay, you alluded to that. But there's fear that fentanyl might be used in black market cannabis products. So that's driving people to push for regulated legalization. Derek, explain to me, what's your view on this?
Well, that is exactly the reason why we push for regulation so hard. It's, very rare that a business or an industry asks to be regulated. And this is one of those instances because having that protection and really changing the perception and cannabis shame that we've all experienced, that's where that starts. It's really making sure that we have vetted products, that the people that are checking to make sure, those regulators that are making sure that the products are safe, effective, and as marketed. That is a huge pathway forward. You're speaking towards the opioid epidemic. There you go. Why continue to restrict and prohibit this industry when it's kind of contributing to the black market side opioid epidemic?
Jay, Drea, let me ask you this. You mentioned the regulatory environment. Is there anything you want to say about the current state of things?
I think, unfortunately, especially with Tennessee, we're slow. And that lag continues to put strain on local businesses that are participating in this potential economic growth, as well as it puts consumer safety in jeopardy. So I just can't stress enough how important it is that we continue to push forward, to our lawmakers and people that are lobbying on behalf of this industry to get the guidelines and the regulations in place. It's a must.
Thanks for tuning in to this rebroadcast of our episode about cannabis in Tennessee from 2022. When we come back, we'll visit a funky little cart that would make Willie Nelson proud, and we'll take a look at a brick and mortar cannabis retailer. Your support is what makes Nashville Public Radio possible. Now, we're asking you to continue that support by giving at WPLN.org. Thanks. We'll be right back. I'm Khalil Ekulona, and this is Nashville. Thanks for tuning in to our re-air from last year's episode about cannabis culture in Tennessee. Earlier in the hour, we heard from lobbyists and business owners. Now let's visit a couple of shops in action. In East Nashville, on the corner of Woodland and North 11th Street, there's a blue vintage truck that offers cannabis treats. It's run by the Garden family. Let's listen to our visit with them back in May of 2022.
We're in 5 Points, and this is like the Garden family truck, the blue truck, we call it. We got the fruit stand right here, and then one of our tricycles over there, just kind of hanging out before we, spread apart. This is like a really great local spot, so we have a lot of return customers. So this one, it's like it's an eighth of weed, it's half a gram of wax, and it's covered in keef. That's inside a King Paul, ready to smoke. Those things are a big seller for us. And then again, we have the pre-rolled joints, and those are about like 1.8 grams of our higher THC flower, and that's going to be around like 15 to 17% THC, depending on the strain. First of all, the laws in Davidson County are really lax. Like, for instance, it's decriminalized up to 2 ounces to have any cannabis products, and then there's no regulation on the distillates or anything. And then on top of that, there's other loopholes that we jump through to be able to serve higher THC.
I just love weed. I have a passion for it, and I know a lot about it. So I'm like, getting paid to smoke and sell weed every day, like, hell yeah.
We're just kind of like hanging out, and then when the phone goes off and it's time for me to venture out to the city, I'll do that. So we do 24-hour delivery service in Nashville. We have a full menu, and we have a phone number that you can text anytime, and we'll basically just communicate with you and help you figure out what it is that you want.
I just served up one of our regular customers. She's always looking for me in this area around 6 o'clock. This is a custom-built cannabis tricycle. It holds edibles on the bottom here. I have high THC. I also have blunts. The tricycle is good because I can go anywhere I want to. I'll travel like to Broadway to meet, to serve the tourists who come to Nashville to like have a good time. And I like to be a part of their experience. It's very fulfilling. We basically started the cannabis industry in Nashville on the strip of Broadway, and we had space from next to Jason Aldean's. And we did a lot of business there on our trucks, and we were the first ones down there. But then bar owners and the parking lot owners decided that they wanted to do it themselves, so they did. It's like I'm the ice cream truck, but like cannabis style.
Now, over the years, more and more businesses offering cannabis and CBD products have popped up in Nashville. Just before Thanksgiving, I stopped by LabCanna in East Nashville to catch up with Derek Bacinius to see how business is going as they were preparing for Black Friday.
So we have our new display right here. On this side is all of the genetics that we curated from Southern California and Northern California indoor hemp grows. They are very, very high THCA content, which is really what the consumers are looking for these days. But there's more to cannabis flower than just the high number potency. Smell, their flavor profile, terpenes, flavonoids all have an impact, but right now this is what we're looking at. So we have a range of 22 to 26, 27%, which is pretty substantial. We have Pineapple Express, which most people know from the movie. We also have Blue Dream, another flagship, but then Exotic Kush Mints, Lemon Cherry Gelato, Exotic White Truffle. I mean, these names are standard cannabis verbiage. So on the other side, we actually have another grow that's actually based out of here in Tennessee. This is all of the Flow Gardens flower. These smell boxes, these look boxes, they have a little magnifying glass so you can see and look at the fibers on there, which really indicate the quality of flower. The dustier, the better. So you're looking at trichomes. That's really what they're called. Don't want to get too scientific, but not only that, these grow boxes, you can actually give yourself a little smell. How's that? How is that?
Smells good.
Pretty good. That's pretty good. I will say I am very partial to the genetics that we've picked. We really took our time. It is technically illegal to grow because in 2022, there was just a change to the definition of hemp on the state level here in Tennessee. But it is completely legal to purchase and resell. So it's similar to how the industry works in Amsterdam. You go to a coffee shop. Coffee shop is technically not allowed to purchase any cannabis. So they're doing like a backdoor situation where they have runners. They're only allowed to have 500 grams on site at once. So every day they have someone coming in, dropping off flower, and they're able to sell it to consumers. So it's this kind of unspoken rule of how this industry actually plays out.
I'm going to do 2 of the hybrids first, please.
You got it. Mind flashing your ID for me, please? Pretty please. Wisconsin.
I know. I'm traveling a long way for this.
Wisconsin.
I moved here about 2-3 months ago now.
Ah, sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet. So are you in our rewards program already?
I believe I am.
Put your phone number in there, pretty please. All right, my friend. Your total is big plans for the weekend?
This is it right
This is
here.
it. Ooh, let's go. Come on, love it. We're gonna enhance those plans.
Exactly.
Anything you got going on, we naturally enhanced by our products. What's going on? It's Derek Ferry with LabCanna. I'm probably the first person you're gonna see when you open that door. I'm probably going to be the person that checks you out at the register. And then if you have any questions cannabis related, I'm probably going to be the person that helps you with that as well. I love working with cannabis. I love talking about cannabis with people who maybe aren't as familiar with it. Breaking down all types of stigmas or reservations when it comes to cannabis use. So I definitely enjoy that.
In Tennessee, the Medical Marijuana Commission is looking at every state that is legalized, what platforms and programs work, what license structure works, whether they're going to go vertical, meaning that a company has to grow their own, process, harvest their own, extract their own, make their own final products, and sell and distribute their own, all under one brand and all under one company, or if they're going to segment it out, kind of similarly to how the alcohol industry works here. It's definitely challenging, and it's been a long time of challenge. There's no doubt about it. In 2019, Tennessee had about 4,000 licensed hemp grows. This year, we are sitting at roughly 350, and I would say about 25 to 50 are actually harvesting. I think that the Medical Marijuana Commission here is actually doing a great job taking their time. For the longest time, I was a believer and had faith that Tennessee was going to be one of the first states to move forward with a legal program. We're looking to be one of the last. 40 states now have a legal cannabis program in some sense or another, be that medical, adult use, recreational. All of our surrounding states are going through the same thing. Georgia they have 2 licenses out right now, but they've also approved cannabis to be sold in pharmacies. They're the first state to ever do that. Something just needs to happen. We're all tired of waiting. I've talked to many, many, many business owners here, and unfortunately, a lot of the product is coming from out of state because it's so difficult to create your own products and grow your own flower. The state has made it very, very difficult to do that.
This is our brand flower. This side is a hiding flower.
We want to thank you and everyone who tuned in this hour. This is Nashville is a production of Nashville Public Radio. You can listen back at thisisnashville.org or wherever you get your podcasts. And this re-air was produced by Char Daston and Elizabeth Burton. The original episode was produced by Tasha A.F. Lemley. The masterminds behind our theme music are LaRange and Namir Blade. Special thanks to Mark Montgomery, Blaze Gainey, and Tanya Lewis. And keep up the good work and continue your support for This Is Nashville and Nashville Public Radio. If you appreciate all the great things you hear on WPLN and WNXP, the time to give is now. This is Nashville. I'm Khalil Ekulona. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody, and be good to each other.